Serious, what's the creepiest, scariest thing you've seen but no one believes you? I used to have a buddy that lived in the same neighborhood, a few streets over. One night we were having a couple of beers in his backyard while playing cards. I had some things to do the next morning, so just before 10 I said my goodbyes and shoved off. It was a short walk, maybe 15 minutes door to door, so I never drove. Anyway, it was a nice night, uneventful trip. But when I got home, my roommate was coming out the front door, coffee in hand, and dressed for work. He gave me a fun. I was walking to class from the dining hall on my campus when I saw a lady yelling for help and banging on a window of a nearby building. Lots of people were walking past, but I was the only one who seemed to acknowledge it. I went to the window to help, and she told me she was locked in a room in the building and that she needed me to come in and open the door. Now, I have no idea the layout of this building and where she was located. So I decided to call campus security for help despite H. Disgruntled ghost carrying your battery to the kitchen. I'll teach him not to believe in ghosts. Ed. Formatting and holy shit, you guys, thanks. Had my laptop in my bed just before going to sleep, not plugged in, on battery. Made an offhand comment on some website about how I wasn't scared of ghosts and didn't believe in them. Then I turned it off and went to sleep with the laptop beside me in my bed. Next morning when I try to power it on, nothing happens. But the laptop feels unusually light. That's when I realized the battery had been physically removed and placed in the kitchen. I was alone in my apartment, and do not have a his. I think maybe one explanation is that she was somewhere she wasn't supposed to be, and security arriving would have led to her being in trouble, so she hid or found another way out. Or, aliens. Or ghosts. I saw a panther-sized black cat darting out of a water retention artificial forest near a school in the desert. Logically, it shouldn't be able to survive there, but holy shit, I saw it. Animal control wouldn't let that exist. There isn't really food enough for it, and the summers get dangerously hot if you've got black fur. Must have been 4 or 5 feet long. It doesn't make sense, but I 100 saw it, and so did the friend I was with. I was at this scene of a suicide work-related. Guy shot himself with a shotgun, right under the chin. When I walked in, a black cat was sitting in his blood and staring at me. Really weird. Edit, for the ones calling bullshit, that's cool lol. The wife called us. His wife and kid came running out of the house past me as I got there. The detectives came out after the fact. And it was his own cat. Not quite sure how young I was at the time, but it was probably between 5 and 8. I was in my babysitter bed at the time in her trailer park. It was 3 a.m. I had woken up because I had to pee. When I woke up, I looked down the hallway to see my babysitter leaning against the wall like one of the stereotypical cool guys do in movies. And I made eye contact, and I felt my body go cold because she was still sound asleep next to me in bed. I went under the blankets trying to hide, and when I looked back, footsteps and banging in my attic. For about 2 months, almost every night I would hear from my attic. The steps are only like 5 feet from my room's small taps or footsteps. Then it gradually got louder to the point it sounded like an audible foot was pressing on the wood. I told my dad, and he told me it was probably an animal that got up there or something. Thing is, my sister heard it too, as her bedroom was in the same hallway as mine. My dad might been right, as it was completely gone aft. In the same room of my old house, I have seen a convulsed face floating outside my window. My brother has also seen it too. I saw the same face over a number of periods, and it would do stuff like smile and float closer and further from the glass. Our youngest brother a few years later complained that he didn't want to play with the boy in his room anymore, as he was getting too much blood on his toys. It was the same room. That's amazing. I have a similar but much milder story from when I was maybe 8. I was standing by the window in my bedroom watching the sky get darker before bed. Then before it got properly dark, it got lighter and lighter instead, and it was the next day. I really don't think I slept a full night standing upright at my bedroom window, and the transition from evening to morning was seamless. Not sure if it counts as creepy or overall scary, but it was weird. Back in high school I lived in a large apartment complex. It was maybe around 8-9 at night, and completely dark. I was with a group of friends, 4 or 5 people. We were just talking and messing around with a friend's pair of walkie-talkies as we decided to look up in the sky as 2 fireballs, or what can be described as fireballs, just appear in the sky and slowly move in a line. Just as that happened, we started getting what sounded East Coast US here. For years we were told cougars don't live here. Local trail cams disagree. Life, finds a way. Edit, learning interesting cougar facts. Thanks guys, gals. I woke up to something. It sounded like a door shutting. At first I thought it was a dream because I could hear it in the dream as I was waking up, kinda like when someone calls your name when you're dreaming. But then I looked at my cat. His hair was completely standing up and he was beaming at my bedroom door. This was the moment when I got really scared. BC, I know animals can pick up on that shit, and I thought he might know something's wrong. My cat doesn't do this type of thing unless a dog. Not to frighten you, but might have been a form of seizure. Some people who experience seizures have described periods of time in which nothing is recording in the brain, and they have no memory of what has transpired. To outside observers, however, they can be seen performing basic activities such as walking around or even driving. I've heard of this theory being proposed as an explanation for supposed alien abductions. Real shit going here. Enough scrolling. Just after high school, maybe 6 months or so after 9/11, I was a van driver who drove the Meals for Meals on Wheels to the place where they get packaged up and taken for home delivery. Anyway, the delivery van only had FM radio, and I was listening to 92.5 FM, when all of a sudden the station cuts out and a transmit ion that I can only describe as an American version of a number station began playing. It was seemingly random numbers followed by a long period of the same phrase repeated over. I have a similar story but much smaller. My husband lives around a 5-minute walk from the shop I used to work in, literally down the road and a left turn into the high street. I was due in at 6 a.m. so my phone alarm went at around 5:15, so I got up, got myself ready etc. and headed out the door at around 5:45, as usual. Just as I hit the left turn, I get a phone call from my manager demanding to know where I was as it was 20 to 8 in the morning and they had to open on the. I wrote about this a while ago. None of my family really believes me, everyone just dismissed me as imagining things. Copy and pasting below. So I was getting on the elevator in the metro. To get from the train platform to the main platform with the turnstiles and exit, you have to take the elevator. So I got on with this older guy, it was just us two. And I glanced over and this guy was watching me. Pointedly. And he was smiling but not in a nice, welcoming way. You know in CLI. I forget the name of it, but there's something that happens rarely after you wake up. You can feel like you're still in a dream and you can have hallucinations. Ghost story time. I was living with a few of my friends 1.5 years ago, and we're all pretty religious. At least 2 of us work in religion. We were talking about how we didn't believe in ghosts or demons, at least in the sense that we couldn't see them if they were real. We started talking about how if we saw one it would change our perspective entirely. I said out loud, "If something is here I wish it would just show us." 2 nights later I'm sound asleep and have the most vivid BR. No one ever believes me when I tell them this except the few people that are involved. My dad thinks we are just too imaginative even though my mom and I will tell the exact same stories at different times, never having talked to each other, but anyway here's what I have to contribute, it's a copy-paste BTW. I've told this story on Reddit before. My story starts when I was roughly 8. My parents bought an old farmhouse that's over 100 years old. We found newspaper clippings in the wall. Take a weapon or SMTH and go stay in attic overnight. It's possible that some homeless people climb to attic at night to sleep though. Sound like she was trying to lure you into the building. Maybe she was trying to mug you or something like that. When I was 3, we were picking up my grandparents for a Sunday drive. I was sitting in the back seat on the passenger side. My grandfather was sitting in front of me. Suddenly he keeled over, dead of a massive stroke. As they hustled my little sister and me out of the car and into my grandparents' store, I happened to look over my shoulder and plainly saw Grandpa walking down the street with two men. Both were dressed in suits, which made it all the more incongruous that Grandpa W. Not sure if this counts because I have at least two people that do believe me. After coming home from work one day, I was walking through my kitchen towards the living room when a frying pan just flew across the room and hit me square between the shoulders. My roommate and a friend of his both saw it happen and lost their shit. Wasn't he the only time we saw weird shit in that house? I saw a shadow person in the same spot almost every day. Heard extremely heavy footsteps stomping across our. The scariest thing I saw was at the age of 16. I woke up early in the morning, 4:35ish a.m. Me and some friends were supposed to go on a road trip for the weekend. We had a long AF ride to one of the stops we wanted to visit, and didn't he want to be there too late? I look out my window, and it's still a kinda dark outside. I walk downstairs and see wet footprints all over the house, and suddenly a big man like 6'7". I was around 6'1" at the time, just bolted past me and out the front door. And edit. Thanks everyone for reading my experience. As I figured, a lot of people wouldn't believe it, thus the theme of the thread. Little follow-up to what all I can remember is that my dad instantly switched from working nights to working days so he could be home at night if anything else happened. A few months later, my parents finally saved up enough money to move into a much better neighborhood. Ever since I moved out of that area, I never had any problems, other than the night tea. Good friend in college had this happen, except there really was an intruder. Apparently my buddy, small guy, maybe 5'4" but stocky, and his pit bull, very small pit comparatively, oddly enough, not scary at all, heard something and stared at their bedroom door for what he said felt like 5 minutes. Then someone actually came through the door and all hell broke loose. They fought their way through the house, friend in his underwear out into the front lawn. My friend doesn't remember much, but AC. Fishing on Lake Minnewanka in Banff National Park with a good friend. About 50 feet from shore. Around 8:30 p.m. I see glowing red eyes. Up in the trees. Like red, like Predator, I guess. I do a double take, they are gone. I decide not to say anything, maybe I'm trippin'. Did just smoke up? Nope. 5 minutes later my buddy says, I just seen some glowing red eyes up in the top of those trees. I feel goosebumps. Yup, I saw them too. We look back and they are gone. We decide if she didn't exist, where did you get the acid though? I'm tripped out for you. I'm bothered we'll never know what actually happened. Maybe there's a secret floor that you can only access if you copy the gestures he made. If anything, that sounds like a boss fight to me. I'm kidding, but fuck, that's creepy. Not really creepy, yeah dude. Seeing a random 6'7" big fucking man in 5 a.m. is just normal, I guess. That's some Lynchian shit. I'm sure some of your mother's love rubbed off on it, and it was just making sure you were okay. We had this punching bag on the ground, not hanging on the air, that we took the bag off of, leaving only the thing that brings the punching bag back to you. We were wondering what to do with it. The next few days, my mom was doing some arts and crafts project. She was big on it lately, and made this dragon head. She called it George and hung it on that punching bag thing. When I slept, it was directly in my eyesight if I looked through my bedroom door. Sometimes, when I was having trouble. A few years ago, I was driving to student teaching down the central coast of California early one morning, and the radio started going staticky, and then a bright green fireball went across the sky. It was awesome looking. So I believe you. This was 4 years ago. As I was walking on the sidewalk on a busy afternoon, I saw a suspicious boy, man about 18 years old. He was 10 meters away and walking what it looked like towards me. I kept my eyes on him despite the fact that he wasn't looking directly at me. His eyes were roaming, jumping from an object to an object. As we approached one another, half a meter away from each other, he takes out a knife and tries to stab me in my left side. He wasn't really fast, so I easily dodged it and immediately. Okay, so I was flicking through these and told my girlfriend about one, and she hit me up with these stories. Just some background: she is a dedicated science brain, and not superstitious at all. When she was growing up 4 to 15 years of age, she would often wake up in the middle of a disturbed sleep to see an old woman perched at the end of her bed. This woman was not someone that she recognized. The old lady would soothe her back to sleep, often patting her feet at the end of her bed. When I was 7 or 8, I would have a reoccurring nightmare that one of my dolls came to life, played with me, and then would try to pull me into my closet with her. I'd follow her into the closet at first, but then she'd show me this little door at the back of the closet, and my heart would start to race. I don't know what it was about that door, but I knew something bad would happen if I went through it. I'd start to struggle and try to pull away, but the doll was too strong and would start pu. Alright, buckle in. My neighbor was dying of a heart condition about 6 years ago. He knew he was, so he was giving away his valuables to people he trusted with them. Neighbor gave me his tackle box. He loved to fish. I would see him come home from fishing every day, and he'd just sit on his porch and skin fish. I just put the tackle box in my closet, and didn't really do anything with it since I don't fish. Anyways, soon after, he passed away in his home. Exactly a week after that, I woke up. I had a similar experience. Not with death, anyway. For years there was a picture of a family sitting on the table in my grandma's house. The picture would be taken down every now and then and a new portrait going up. It was a portrait of some extended cousins. I don't know their names. One day my mom and I were in a grocery store and I spotted that family. I pointed them out to my mom, who had no clue who I was about. They weren't cousins. She had no idea who they were. I told her they were. I experienced the same thing with some friends. However, the news did a special report and said it was space junk that entered our atmosphere. You could even hear the things, sounded just like what you would expect fireballs to sound like. More than likely you had a seizure or mini stroke. The part where you were being lured by the false mom voice gave me chills. That needs to be in a horror movie, geez. Yeah. I'd move. I had a similar experience. Me and my mom went hiking in the woods in the Smoky Mountains National Park, and we got disoriented. We couldn't figure out what direction we came from, and it was getting late. Out of nowhere, a man and a young boy appeared. They pointed us in the right direction, and we made it back to our car just before nightfall. I swear they just vanished, because I remember looking back to see where they were going and they were just gone. A similar thing happened to me in college as well. The difference being that this building was next door to my apartment, slightly off campus, and no one else was around except for my cousin who I was living with at the time. An old lady was tapping on the window to get our attention from a room on the second floor. When I walked up to the building, I yelled up at her, asking what was wrong. I could see her mouthing words, but she wasn't yelling. It seemed like she was speaking normally. What if in another dimension, this girl Sapphire has a story about a guy she met at a bar, drank with, gave him her number, tried acid with at her apartment, went on a walk with him taking about the constellations, when he just disappears, never to be seen again. Kind of related, there's a guy I see all the time. I have no idea who he is, but every time I see him he smiles and says hello to me like he knows me. I always say hello back, but I have no idea who this guy is. I know it's the same guy though. He's a really distinctive looking 60-ish-year-old Asian dude. I see him in random places around every 2 weeks or so, though occasionally it's been a month. Edit, not that it really matters, but when I say Asian, I mean South Asian. That's generally H. It was afternoon in the middle of summer. I was delivering soda to an old mental hospital that was in the process of being shut down. My call sheet didn't say which of the several buildings I should go to, so I was trying doors on all of them until I got one that opened. The building that did open was the crappiest looking so far. It was missing bricks, and looked somehow just darker than the others. Like it suddenly wasn't such a sunny summer day anymore. I was ready to get suddenly shanked. When I was 9, I was home alone at like 10 p.m., and this white van just pulls up on my driveway. The van had tinted windows as well as being in the dark, so I couldn't see the driver. I was shitting myself because I thought a pedo was gonna come and kidnap. It just sat there for like 20 minutes and drove off. To this day, no one believes me. This is the scariest one, Imo. Imagine if you went in to help her. Who knows what would have happened to you? I've been reading these stories for well over an hour past 4 a.m. now, and I was too afraid to get up and pee, but reading this almost made me wet my bed. First off, you told him to show himself. That S on you, my friend. Not sure if it counts, but quite creepy, since it's not that people don't believe me, but the second part isn't quite creepy to them as it actually is. Here it goes. There's south this abandoned resort place like a 15-minute walk away from my house. The place is old, ceiling fell in some places. One day, me and a friend were exploring and found some papers. One of them was a list of people that died while building the place, sizable list, maybe 10-15 people. A few weeks ago, me and that. Get new keys. Fuck that. This happened to me, except I came home early from school and I caught them in the act. Two skinny guys in all black with masks. Didn't seem to have any weapons. I was like 9 and had no idea what was going on, but I remember them saying, "Oh shit." Then they all kinda looked at me and one said, "It's a kid," and they all just bolted. It really felt like a scene from Barry. I called my mom and she called the police, and the police never found them because I told them absolutely no information. Bika. This may be long and it isn't no one believes me a scenario due to the amount of us involved, more of a lot of skepticism thing. Backstory. You'll need it. I grew up in a small California desert tourist town called Joshua Tree. Home of the Joshua Tree National Park. Those of us that are older call it the Monument, as it was that before National Park Dam. I was in my early 20s at the time of this, which was approximately 14 years ago, and was the only one with a car and a license. Two of my friends went permanently missing the night we did acid at one of their parents' cabin in the Vermont wilderness. They were never found, dead or alive. The events that led up to it were kind of creepy, but honestly at this point I can hardly discern between the real and imagined except that they really disappeared. I was considered a suspect in their disappearance, and while I definitely wouldn't say no one believes me because their parents were very supportive of what I was going to hunters without a license, or some other people who weren't supposed to be there. You know what would be cool? Is if you found somebody who really loves to fish, and then passed this tackle box along with the story to go with it. Would probably make your old neighbor happy. I came home to find blood splattered all over my front door and walls after a Yakuza knife attack. When I was a kid, I used to stay at my grandparents' house a lot. They've had that house for as long as my mom has been alive, possibly even longer. All I know is that the history of the property is still unknown to this day. Anyways, I used to stay in my mom's old childhood room. It was called the Purple Room due to the purple carpet and the lavender wallpaper. It was a pretty big room with a queen-sized bed in the middle, and a humongous window right next to it. During the summer I would FRE. This is the story that made me pull my feet under the blankets. Now I'm scared and too hot. Link. While you likely saw an owl, glowing red eyes are a common feature of the stranger and more dangerous cryptids Mothman, Missouri Monster, Dover Demon, Chupacabra, etc. that are frequently also associated with UFO flaps. LPT. If you have conjunctivitis afterwards it probably wasn't an owl. What happened in your roommate's night terrors? On mobile, so I apologize beforehand. It's kinda a long one. It'll be my first long post, so I hope you enjoy. TLDR at the bottom. My mom runs an antique business, and has for years. I've worked with her on various occasions, often changing between working the shop with her and doing construction with my dad. For a while, she ran her business a few towns over with my best friend's dad, and the business was okay, but didn't he make enough to support the both of them? Well, a few years back I spent one summer in high school living with my aunt and uncle and keeping their 7-year-old daughter for them during the day while they worked. I was up late one night watching TV in the living room. The living room was right off of the kitchen, separated only by an L-shaped bar. I saw my cousin, out of the corner of my eye, walk down the hallway from her room into the kitchen. It was way past her bedtime, so I told her she needed to go back to bed. When I didn't hear her answer, I got you. Something like this happened to me and my sister as well. We both slept upstairs in separate rooms on opposite ends of a short hallway. It was only our 2 bedrooms on the top floor. I'd often hear typing on a keyboard and or soft steps walking down the hall to the stairs in the middle of the night. It was so natural and clear sounding that I never questioned it. It was during the time where MSN was popular, and I just figured my sister was up past her bedtime chatting or had to use the bathroom. Fuck, I really think you may have someone living your place. I've seen those videos of them coming out at night and moving around, and nothing terrifies me more than that shit. Didn't see it but heard it. My friends and I got a cheap set of walkie-talkies from Walmart, and were playing around with them in the middle of the day. There's a bit of silence as we're trying to figure out the volume, and out of nowhere there's a male voice saying "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday" that comes through all of our walkie-talkies, and it definitely sounds like it from one of those aircraft headsets. We tried to answer back, but there's no response. I called non-emergency, but they said there were. One of my childhood friends had a similar story from the early 1970s. His parents had weird shifts. His dad worked until late in the evening, and his mom worked nights at some college teaching part-time. He had an older sister, a teen, who took care of him from about 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. He would have been 5-6 when this happened. He used to tell a story about the funny man with a smile and long limbs who visited him at night. The man would speak in funny words and his parents just blew it off. 2 stories here, both about my grandma. Near the end, my grandma had trouble controlling her bowels, wore a diaper, and would typically go all over the toilet. After she passed in the house under professional care. My family cleaned out the house, took the wallpaper down, cleaned the place spotless, because we were going to move in the next month or 2. About a week after we finished cleaning, we went back to make sure everything was good. We get to the bathroom my grandma used. The description of his behavior made me think maybe he was on drugs, but holy crap, that is terrifying. There's something about Mary. Point 2. Shitty med student here. I've had class questions directly related to your sorts of issues. The right answer to a question about a kid who sees a dead relative is, it's totally chill up until the kid is like 5 or 6. Visual hallucinations are totally fine because kids don't really understand the finality of death at that age. And adults are also allowed to have visual hallucinations for up to a year, so long as it doesn't seem to really be affecting their life negatively. DSM definitions th. LOL, thanks for cluing me in, Mom. Oh boy, I think I know whose ghost you found. Check it out from this Wikipedia entry. The Desert Queen mine was one of the more successful and long-lived mines of the high desert. The abandoned mine is located in Joshua Tree National Park. The mine was established by a man named Frank L. James in the early 1890s. The rich or initially found prompted local outlaw gang leader and cattle rustler Jim McCaney to take over the mine. McCain should V watch the puppet show instead. My mom and dad lost a friend on an LSD trip, but he was found the next day, having fallen off a cliff while wandering at night. There's no telling what happened to your friends, but it's more than likely that it wasn't some supernatural event. I'm sorry you went through that. Let me preface this by saying I played a lot of Crash Team Racing as a younger child. One night when I was about 4 or so years old, I wasn't having the best sleep. So I woke up in the middle of the night, and to this day, 12 years later, I swear I had an auditory visual hallucination of Aku Aku the tiki guy incoherently speaking. Little 4-year-old me almost shat his pants and ran over to his parents' room. Looking back on it, I am pretty sure they just played it off as a dream, but sounds like someone was stealing something and got locked in, or setting up a trap to kill someone. Either way, you did the smart thing. Going into an unfamiliar building alone to help someone can be dangerous if they are either crazy, setting up a trap, or willing to harm others. I grew up on a 2-acre home with plenty of trees and room for an 8-year-old to run around. Our house also was heated in winter by a wood fireplace, so we would periodically cut down one of our own trees to save money. Well, for about 2 years, there was a stump less than a foot tall near the house, and at least once a day, without fail, I would see someone standing on the stump. Usually it was out of the corner of my eye, but once or twice I looked directly at him. I always looked away quickly, Growing up, I had a friend named Adam. He was never able to come out dying the day, only right before all of us kids had to go home for the evening. Adam lived a few houses over, in a house with an overgrown yard. I met his parents once. They were very strange, didn't he smile, and obviously didn't he want me there. I remember Adam telling me that he was sick, that's why he couldn't play that much. He was a small boy, pale with dark hair. Eventually, Adam stopped showing up altogether. And did you mention anything to Mary or your sister? I'm curious to find out if it's the husband or something more sinister. I was fine with the supernatural stories, but you know what, fuck this shit. Bye. Pretty sure it's visual hallucinations or your brain not working properly at night. I've heard my dad scream next to me, and when I turned to look, he was sound asleep in front of the TV like nothing ever happened. This happened to me last year, and I fully understand why no one believed me because it sounds ridiculous. Every morning, I need to wake up at 5 a.m. to get the 5:30 bus to the train station to go to university. I had to be there by 8 a.m., but I like to get there half an hour early. To get to the bus stop, I have to walk down this bike path and under this bridge to get to this quiet backstreet road. There is fuck all light on the bike path. This street is dead quiet. The right side of the road. This makes me sound fucking crazy, but anyways, it was a warm summer morning back when I was a kid. I was standing in our hallway, putting on my shoes when I randomly peeked into our living room and saw a see-through male figure surrounded by rainbow-colored lights standing right in the middle of the living room. He was reading a book and didn't he seem to notice me. I thought it was weird, but I didn't feel scared or anything. It felt like the room was filled with a warm, loving energy. About 8 years ago now, I was taking a drive out to Kansas from the East Coast. I was with a friend and we were going out to see her grandparents. Once we were about 2 hours from the grandparents' house, my friend starts outlining standard operating procedures of seeing things in and around her family's home. She seemed a bit panicky when going over everything, but I managed to calm her down. I'm skeptical of everything and assured her that the things she had seen when she was a small child were. This might end up buried, but I'm going to add it anyways. I work night shift at a hospital, and during the night it's fairly common for us to run out of particular supplies that we need. During the day, there is normally a worker from Central Supply that you can call, and they'll bring up what you need directly to your floor. But at night, we don't have that luxury, so we often have to go down and get it ourselves. Central Supply is the basement of this hospital that has been around since the 40s. Right now, I wonder what you would have seen if you filmed this or live streamed from when you left till you reached your house. I used to do this as a kid, but I'd hallucinate stuff like shadows arguing or corner of my eye. People. I know the things I see aren't real and can't hurt me, but it still doesn't change the fact that I'm terrified shitless of them. The scariest one was reoccurring. It's more recent, and I'm chalking up its creation to me being stressed out. It would perch on my table and watch me from across my bedroom. It's always dark, but I know that if I can see it, it can see me. When I'd say something. That's a nice shot, though. I was terrified of being kidnapped at that age, all the 80s missing kids on milk cartons, and was always cautious of vans because to an 8 years old, kidnappers only snatch you from vans, lol, so I literally would have lost my shit. Okay, I am really disturbed by kitchen cupboard pop-up man. Something about that visual unsettles the shit out of me. So you're telling me that after she died, the poor lady still couldn't control her bowels and was hard of hearing? Damn, death sucks just as much as life? That's creepy on so many levels. I am positive he was a stalker, but it is really weird that he was getting bored and finding new targets that fast. Screams forever. This reminds me of that post where someone was waking up and there were sticky notes that weren't written by him. Turns out there was a carbon monoxide leak, and he kept blacking out. That's really strange. I wonder what they were there to do this for, not to kidnap you or rob something. I initially thought they might have raped you and that's what your initial dragging under the bed nightmare was from. But why would they risk that and also keep showing up instead of just kidnapping you? Finally, my chance to shine. So, I live in Edinburgh in Scotland, which has, naturally, rather a lot of old buildings. When I was 4, my family moved into a Victorian villa that was built in 1860. Lovely place, beautiful big garden, happy days. That was, until what I like to refer to as the incident of the window. So, one afternoon, small me was sat under the window in the ground floor living room playing with some Barbies. Mum is in another room, and no one else is in. No one else shall. Welp, goose who ain't sleeping tonight. A few years ago I went camping with my dad, my sister, my dad's friend, and my dad's friend's dog. To get where we camped we had to boat across and down a river to where some old woods is. This was proper camping, not a campsite or anything. When we were there, me and my sis decided to play hide and seek. I ran into the woods to find her, and about 30 seconds in I see this medium-sized man, about 50, with long, ungroomed, gray hair, just standing there. I saw him for about half a second because coming from a Latino background, flying fireballs are supposed to represent one of the forms witches take. Alright. So this one comes with a little backstory. Gonna be sort long, so strap in. Mobile blah blah. I worked at a YMCA summer camp in Colorado. Cool spot, really secluded, no cell service or Wi-Fi. It backed up to some NFS land that we had permits to use. I digress. Before this was a summer camp for kids, it was a secluded farm ranch owned by this family, the Bandors, who had been living on it and running it for decades. Time frame we are talking about is circa 1890. I don't remember. That's crazy that nobody believes you, since this is very possible. When I was a wee child, when I was still put down for naps, every day a shadow man would pop out from the end of the bed as soon as my mom left the room. It would pop up and do a little hop before just standing there, as if it was waiting for me. It had no face, or any other discernible features other than the general body structure of a man, with its entire being simply a flat, opaque brown-gray shadow. Despite this, it would stare at me. Each and every day, for the duration of my nap. When? Creepy. Did your mom say where the door led to? Was there anything behind it? I work night shift at a nursing home. At my first job 5 years ago, the building used to be a school in the 50s. So the setup is already eerie, anyway. There was the usual noises heard in the distance, and cold chills every now and then. The faucets in the rooms used to start running water randomly, and the lights would turn themselves off and on. But the last straw was one night I felt someone tap me on the shoulder, and when I turned around I saw a silhouette pressed up against the priv. I want to believe that your grandpa was a former secret agent, and when they needed him either for something or to disappear, they planted a double with your family. Who is the one who died? I appreciate the Kegel's comment, a bit of comic relief. I'm still thoroughly unsettled by this, though. By your description, it sounds like he was there to find out how his damn book ends. That's my kind of ghost. 2 years ago, I moved out into rural Indiana with some of my best friends to share a pretty large apartment that was above my best buddy's dad's garage. Since most of my family is from the area, most of them have known about the house their whole life, and all of them pretty much unanimously agreed that it was haunted. Before my friend's dad moved in, the place had actually been a church. One wing was the actual chapel and the other was living quarters. My mom said multiple exorcisms had been. The bed lady sounds like sleep paralysis. My brother insists that when we were kids, our mom took us to LAX to see a 747 that had crashed onto the tarmac and broken apart, even though I have absolutely no recollection of this. He said it was burned out, broken into several pieces, and the yellow emergency slides were deployed. It was still smoking and there was a trail of debris and charred runway behind it. Apparently it was just me, my brother and my mom, despite the fact that we have another brother and 2 sisters who were still L.K., so I live in this pretty suburban town in Canada. However, just about a kilometer behind us is a huge forest country that is completely backwoods and super creepy at night. Anyway, there was a party in this backwoods town one night, so me and the boys decided to go. They left before I did, and the guy I was supposed to leave with ended up crashing there. My mom didn't want me to stay the night, so I called my sister and asked her to pick me up at the general store. So I left the house and it was. And? What did you do, or what happened? Ooh. I have a story. My husband and BF and I were laying on his trampoline one night looking up at the stars and shit when all of a sudden a chunk of the sky starts moving, billowing. It looked like a green screen shifting, and had to be a few miles wide. We both saw it, and still have no fucking idea what it could have been. It's either my scariest nor creepiest I've seen, and since I've 2 friends who saw the same thing, I certainly have someone who believes me, but it still is my most prominent thing I remembered in my first year at the middle school till these days. It may be past 5 and school's over, so does my playing around behind the home economies building. With my 2 friends who heading home in the same direction as mine, we simply walk across the all-purpose field, which have a huge flag pole in it. I was 8 and my brother was 10. It was sometime in the middle of the night when my brother went barging into my room saying, "Something is coming. Something is coming." I went under my bed to hide and my brother went under the sheets on my bed. I laid there, and shit you not. Door opens. And I see a pair of legs and feet that looked inhuman. How to describe it? It stood in front of my bed. Then from there I don't remember what happened next. I went to sleep under my bed and my brother Faye. Easily the scariest thing on this thread. Geez. This is probably the creepiest one here. Could be some pedo stalking a kid to kidnap, and he probably sensed you knew what he was doing. Once saw a giant fireball in the sky. It was enormous, bigger than anything I've ever seen, and kept going north across the hills and the horizon. Turned around to talk to my neighbor who also saw it. We had no idea what we were looking at, but suddenly it was gone. We're talking deep impact size. Right before it hit Earth we all should have been dead. Don't know what the hellfire this was, but I know what I saw. Around summer 2001. Bro, that's kinda sus though. As a Marine, I used to have the graveyard patrol shift at the Beirut bombing memorial. Part of the memorial is dedicated to a veteran's cemetery. Oddly enough, I never got freaked out being completely alone in a remote cemetery, in the middle of the night, surrounded by dense woods on all sides. It was actually kind of peaceful, to be honest. However, one night I was patrolling near the perimeter fence where some of the oldest headstones are, when I heard the sound of a woman humming. I follow. It's just in my head. Yes, doctor. That is in fact the problem. Upvote for. We ain't about tempting demons, lol. That's a cool picture, bro. You literally have an audience here of people willing to figuratively hear your story of what happened. No, stop, I can't. This happened to me when I was about 14 years old. I and my friend were really into photography at the time, and we woke up early to shoot empty streets in the morning sun. We were walking on a small street filled with family houses. Nobody was around except us, and that blue soft morning light was giving a pretty dreamy look to everything. I can't give a more accurate description in English straight anyway. We came around one corner, and we could clearly see one of the houses on fire. Whoa. Before starting this story, keep in mind that I was around 9 years old, so certain details are lost to me. But the story is still the same. Around 2010, I lived in a 2-story apartment, and was in the 4th grade at the time, living with my older brother and my 2 parents. Due to my brother being the oldest child in house, he had his own space. He just DJ'd all day and all night long, mixing music and having a good time. Making fire, basically. He also. I remember when I was little and was taking a bath with the help with my mom. Some guests came over, so she left me alone for a bit to talk to them, leaving me. Personally, I was always scared of being alone in the bathroom, maybe because of Bloody Mary or being a pussy. Anyways, I remember looking at the mirror and swear to God seeing a woman in there with black hair, white skin, staring at me. It's very cliché, black hair, pale skin, looking at me in the mirror. It could be my imagination, but something like this? Link: do not open if easily spooked. There are about a dozen conditions and diseases that can make people so photosensitive that they cannot go out into the sun. It's not a stretch to think that that kid, if everything else just happened to be true as you remember it, had one of those conditions. Additionally, if the house was meant to be vacant, it's possible that family could have been squatting there, at least temporarily, and that would explain why they were not welcoming to having others around drawing attention to them. My aunt emotionally abusing me when I moved to her was 16, because my dad was abusing me. It went from bad to worse in a week. And no one believed me what I was experiencing. She had a light bulb installed in my basement room. It had a cable going all the way up to her. Whenever she wanted me to come up, she would blink the light and I have to run upstairs immediately. I couldn't finish my last task, like finishing the sentence I was just writing or wearing a shirt, because I was about to g. I have had several short and small hallucinations that have scared the ever-loving fuck out of me, but people have not believed me, including 2 doctors. I've been told that it's just in my head. Well, no shit, Sherlock. At about 3 a.m. my computer roars to life. Windows Update can do that. And ghosts. Probably you just went to a different dimension, she stayed in yours and you are now in ours where she never went to the bar, sorry for you. I just deleted all this cause y'all fucking stupid. I believe you may have remembered it, even though you were so young. I don't think people realize how much we remember, and even if you don't, your body does. So I imagine your subconscious might, as well. Similar story, but on a much smaller scale. When I was a kid, I was staying at my aunt's 100-year-old townhouse. My sister and I found an old Ouija board box on a shelf in the basement, brought it up to one of my aunts who got frightened and asked us to put it away. So naturally, we went to her wife with it and asked to play. She lamented that the planchette had been missing for years, and it was true. The cracked board was in the box, but we had nothing to read it with. I'm glad we didn't. I'd hazard a guess that random air currents were responsible for moving your door, especially likely if you have any windows open, and your cat was acting on the same lizard brain instincts that caused you to freak out. The shadow was your mind filling in the gaps in an already tense situation. I saw a non-native poison snake in the forest of my old neighborhood, behind a house. It had eggs and it looked at me. I was afraid and ran as fast as my 6-year-old legs could take me. Told my brother, who didn't believe me. The woods where I saw the snake are gone. I have never told this story to anyone besides my brother, and feel stupid writing it now. Edit. This was in Oregon, and this is the only snake that isn't garden snake I have ever seen. Wow, sounds like there's some serious spiritual warfare going on in that house. Some kind of sleep paralysis demon got into your room, and the great-grandfather spirit protected your friend but couldn't protect you. I once encountered what I can only think of to be a skinwalker. Me and a friend were outside in a small town in Germany, where my friend lived. It was past 11 p.m. on a summer evening. He would invite me for a sleepover on the August 13th every year. It always was pretty normal, and we slept in a tent in his garden. This evening we decided to head to the town's playground to talk about stuff and do some stupid shit like doorbell ditching. Right behind the playground there was a small forest inn. He was smiling because he loved spooking people and did it on purpose. My uncle's kid, fucking psycho. I saw him take a power drill to a cat. Luckily the cat survived, but nobody believed me. They kept insisting that the cat was attacked by a coyote. A year later, same fucking cat was trying to get into the house, and for some reason the little psycho didn't want the cat getting in. It was an indoor-outdoor cat, so he slammed its fucking head in the door. Then did it again. And again. and again. Until my uncle stopped him. They still don't believe me about that. Hi, that is super fucked up, thanks. Seeing a random face outside of a window is my literal worst fear. I hate that I read this loudly crying face. Serious chills. Excellent writing skills, dude. Did you ever talk to Mary about what happened? Possibly something so traumatizing your mind made you forget. So scary. Why am I reading this thread right before going to sleep? Gasp, I am on a laptop. I am not scared of ghosts. It was a glitch in the simulation. Kidding, I'm not insane, I promise. Do you mind explaining more of what you think happened that night or describe what part of the experience might be paranormal? When I was about 14, there was 2 men that attempted a home invasion while I was home with my mom and a 2-year-old she was babysitting. It's about 2 in the afternoon. While my mom was sleeping on the living room couch, she heard someone trying to open the front door. She jumped up and looked out the window to see a man at the front door and an unfamiliar car in the driveway. The man noticed my mom and immediately put his face next to hers in the window. I'm from the energy company. For about a year I would get these phone calls, always at the same time, 2 or 3 a.m., and the caller never spoke. Just breathing. Then the time changed and the calls were coming at about 11 a.m. Then the calls stopped for about a year. They started coming in again. Again, regularly around the same time of day 2 or 3 times a week. I started having fun with it. I would answer and say, "Hey buddy, haven't heard from you in a while. I've really missed our little chats." Then I started collecting. Haha, would have scared me shitless. The strangest thing here is why you would say that and then not elaborate. I reckon that you had nightmares and were sleepwalking all that time. 2 men broke in one night, ran into you downstairs and just started taking to you. Something about this encounter woke your mom up, and this was the only time they had been there. So yeah, got a couple. Over the course of maybe 2 weeks in a new house, my family got a lot of paranormal activity. First was my older brother, who saw a middle-aged man from the 60s looking outside the window, just floating in the living room, no legs. My mother often heard a very young girl run all the way across the corridor at night, and converse with my very young brother also. When she appeared, the trap used for going into the attic, which is really heavy, was completely opened. To be honest, the scariest thing Eve seen, but no one believed me, was seeing a pair of eyes stare at me when I woke up in the middle of the night. This was before I got curtains. It was the weekend, so it was blamed on me seeing something because I was tired. To be honest, I don't even believe myself cause of my sleep schedule, yet I know something was there cause it blinked. If I had gotten up and walked to the window, I bet I would have saw a face. Edit. Dang, 145 points most I have. Thought this. Well, this one gave me goosebumps. The truly terrifying part about this story is the Mexican music dubstep mashup. I once saw a Jesus statue at a church move once. It really freaked me out. Sounds like you need to go to the doctor to talk about schizophrenia. My friend heard a cat bark. Obviously wasn't her real name, was just a club name she uses. You could have been going to the correct place. The dude had never heard that name before, so he was sending you away. While that was his girlfriend you were asking about. Yes, it happens. I hope the cat got adopted. Black cats already have a bad reputation because of superstitious people, and this poor cat was found at a crime scene. Wholesome haunting, thumbs up. This story made my stomach turn. Someone clearly has an important message to tell you. My friend has a similar story, but he tried datura. His friend called him like 30 minutes after he ate it. He met up with him, smoked a bit. Friend asked him for a cig. He looks down at the pack, looks back up, friend's gone. Looks at his phone, no phone call. Never happened. He had been chillin' alone, hallucinating an entire non-psychedelic interaction. Anticholinergics are scary. There's another guy here who saw one while he had Wallace talkies with his friends and military channels kept tuning in. This could be linked flush face. Were they truffula trees? Again, sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis, 100. Why would you try acid with someone you just met? The shadow people are quite a common form of psychosis. They're a mainstay of my episodes. I'd really recommend that you consult a medical professional, as it appears that this is a recurrent theme for you. I know this sounds silly, but I try to talk to them. Sure, a lot of the time, I do know they're not real, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm experiencing them. I just say hi, and ask how they are. It makes them feel much less threatening. I got chills. I had to lecture my college roommate about calling the fire department. The first time we had to have that conversation was the 5th time she had called 911. I had gotten tired of sitting in bed waiting for sleep or death, whichever would more convenient for midterms. So I got out of bed and my roommate was sitting in the apartment living room just sobbing. So I asked her WTF was her problem, and she just starts wailing about how the bank building across the way was on fire and people were Number 15. Something's coming. Something's coming. The last thing you want in your house when you're a kid is another one of those demon monsters. Well, it turns out there might be one hanging onto your bed frame below your mattress right now. Also, the cutest homeless dog got rescued by Animal Protective Services, and now it lives a happy life with its adopted owner, folded hands hugging face. That's fucking terrifying. Wait, did the face have a soft kind of glow to it? Asking based on personal experience. The card on the car is the strangest thing about this story. What in tarnation? I was 13 at the time, 4 years ago, and was going home from classes. It was winter, and there was snow, and there was this lady walking towards me and my friends, and she was holding something in her arms. It was covered in a black plastic bag and it was big, and she was holding it as if it were a baby. She was crying and yelling, "Oh God, no," and it was only me who noticed her walking past us, and I stopped and was frozen, but nobody knew why. Number stations are very creepy. A spoon jumped on a table. I didn't see it because I was playing a game, but as soon as it landed it made the sound spoons make when dropped on a table, and I immediately stopped playing the game to look at it. One thing though, people did believe me, because I wasn't alone. I was playing doubles on the game with my friend, who also freaked out. Back in 1999 when I was 12, I saw an explosive light in the night sky. I was in a grocery store parking lot, and I didn't even think to look up until I noticed other people pausing in the lot and gazing upward. It looked like a flower of fire, spreading out slowly and burning bright. From our view, it was twice the size of the moon at its maximum spread. It then began to fade, but it was an eerie kind of fade out that didn't register until it was completely gone. It could have been NES. Holy shit. I've been in Reddit for 2 years and this is the first post I ever got chills from. You said the reality of it was much scarier. I was like, sleepwalking and talking to bear? Maybe. Someone else with the bear in the house? Maybe. Let's see. 2 motherfuckers talking to you with the door wide the fuck open? Fuck. That. My family is out of town, so it's just me 27 and my 3.5-year-old here. I swear I've been hearing footsteps in the house at night. Now I'm scared. My bed Tim. Probably some gang-related shit or a dare. Bet you one stabbed that random guy walking down the road like an initiation or something, but the guy was too afraid to actually follow through. Did your sister ever bring this up with you? Presumably Mary mentioned to her that you were just gone the next morning? This reminds me of a story I heard a while back. There doesn't seem to be much on the internet about it though. In Jersey City, New Jersey, a lot of people have reported seeing glowing red eyes at the top of the steeple for St. Joseph's Church. The old church sexton was said to have gone up there one time when the eyes were visible, and was later found dead up there. Edit Sextaker. Maybe you got roofied? By accident? Similar thing, I was walking through NYC near Madison Square at like 4 a.m. I had just walked my girlfriend to the train after a long night. Some old homeless man came up to me and tapped my shoulder. I had headphones on and I turned around, took them off, and apologized that I didn't have any spare change or cash on me I could give him. He said, "No, I don't care about that. I just want to know, are you okay?" I was pretty confused and nodded and just told him, "Yeah, I'm okay." He made sir. I'm not sure which story, if true, is more disturbing. The 19th century man-child at the foot of the bed that both kids saw separately, or the two old pedophiles breaking in and talking to a kid for months. Both are inexplicable. Wow. That's like a real-life version of Coraline.